Hey guys, welcome to a novel affair.
The Bookish podcast where we kiss and tell about our torrid affairs with fictional characters.
So grab a drink and get ready for some pure, unadulterated fun.
Today we are covering Satan's Affair by H.D. Carlton, and I'm probably going to hurt some feelings today.
So this book was my pick for the week.
Indeed, it was.
Uh,
Um, and I want to, before we get into any of this, I want to say that I have read Haunting Adeline and Hunting Adeline, and I did
right.
enjoy both of them very much. Big fan of both of those books.
I I'm fully in love with Haunting Adeline, the whole series.
Yep. If it wasn't for those two
This
books, I we wouldn't be here in this book, if that makes sense. Like,
that's fair. That's a fair point.
yeah.
So some of the content warnings for this are not that unusual with dark romance. Um, but it does contain graphic gore, violence, murder, arousal by murder. That one's actually kind of new. It's a new one. To this extent, it's a new one.
Yeah. Mhm.
Child abuse, psychological torture, and suicide. To name a few.
Yeah, I think that's a good quick quick and dirty list for sure.
Yeah. Something I did like about this book, which I love when authors do this, is when they include a music playlist.
Yes, I love a good music playlist. I especially love when somebody has already put it all on a playlist on like
Yeah.
Spotify or Apple Music, and then I can just go listen while I read. Big
Yeah.
fan of that. So you should probably
So,
cover the kinks list before we get like into it.
yeah.
Because I feel like as soon as I start talking, we're gonna lose half our audience.
Probably. And also, I still have no clue exactly how much we can include on YouTube, just for the sake of not getting full out banned.
Sure. Yeah, blacklisted.
Um, yeah, like have our whole account deactivated. This is a book, you guys. Um, so the kinks are breath play, blood play, and that is fake blood and real blood.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's an RH? Question mark?
I
Kind of not.
technically yes.
But at the same time, somehow no.
Yeah, I don't think we can get into that, but I think that's a
Yeah,
spoiler technically. Um, which you told me stuff about this book forever ago that I had forgotten until I read it. And so, and because obviously Sibby appears in Haunting Adeline,
yeah.
and so I kind of
Which
knew, but maybe not everybody does.
we were completely unaware that we were supposed to have read this first before Haunting and Hunting Adeline.
Correct.
So we kind of spoiled a few things for ourselves by doing that.
Yeah,
Kind of.
true.
Um, so two more kinks, which again, these also kind of have question marks to it, but we'll get into that later. There is DVP. If you don't know what that is, Google it. I suggest you click images.
That's mean. That's a mean thing to do to somebody.
There is also male, male, female. male, female, male, female, male, male.
Yep.
Maybe,
Yep.
possibly.
Yeah, I think that covers it.
So, yeah, those are the kinks that I could think of while I was reading this. There's probably more. The author did not specifically list the kinks. These are just ones that I noticed popped up throughout the book.
I'm going to be honest. We're just going to get into it right now. Here, like,
Give me your initial thoughts.
no, no preamble. So, a couple of things that you actually, the DVP that you mentioned that's in the book, I
Yeah.
trust you. I completely did not don't recall when that happened or the details of it. Um, you may remember that I asked you earlier, like Thursday ish, whenever I started this book, I was on chapter 5, and I texted you
Yes.
and I said, "Hey, have you started this yet? Because if you had and you were farther along than me, I have a question." And you hadn't started it yet, which was fine.
Yeah.
But
What was the question? I've been dying for these questions because you've been texting me for days
yeah,
about this book, and I was nowhere near where you were at.
the question was, does this get better? Because I don't know if I can finish this book.
Okay,
I
elaborate for me.
was
With
so
what specifically did it?
traumatized and horrified and absolutely disgusted that I can't even recall any specific details about any of the smut. I can't tell you what body part was where because I was trying my hardest not to picture it in my head. I was trying really hard just to get through it. Now, I did decide at one point that I was going to finish it regardless. I was going to power through because that's what we do.
Hmm.
However, if this is a smut book, then so is Saw and all of its freaking sequels. I say that out of love and concern. You know, I sit there and I watch. Actually, I don't. I don't watch movies like Saw. I saw the first one, and then that was enough for me forever. Um, but I sit there and I'm like, I want to know who is out there writing this. Like, who is imagining these things and creating it, and then like it scares me because I'm like, that person had all of this in their head, right?
Yeah.
And I remember you saying back before we read it, when we were just having read like Haunting Adeline and then Hunting Adeline, where there was like a moment where you were like, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to finish
Yeah.
this. And we talked about Satan's Affair then. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure, like, once we were well into it or after it. And I remembered you saying, and I didn't remember it until I was like into the book, that some people say that Satan's Affair is way worse than Haunting and Hunting Adeline. And I remember then being
Yeah.
like, how is that possible? And now I know.
Yeah.
And
I've
now I know.
I've read I've read books with a, a similar thing to the whole reverse harem scene where it's like there's the dead body here that was just murdered, and then the couple gets it on like right on the other
Lord's
side of the room.
Lord series that happens, and
Lords, Trigger,
I was
the
still, yep, I was still
yeah,
into both of those books. I still, like, it did not give me even any pause. And
yeah,
I want to point out that The reverse harem esque aspects of this is not what bothered
Yeah.
me. The male, female, whatever, that's, you know,
Yeah.
cool, whatever. Um, that is not any of my issues. Just
I'm gonna
for
go out on a limb and say it
clarification.
was the scene that happened directly before this.
So, I mean, right from chapter one, when, well,
Let's get into the book.
let's start with your henchman list, because let's start with the description of these men first and
Okay.
foremost.
So to be fair, these are not my descriptions. This is what Google AI spit out at me when I asked for an itemized list of characters in this book. So, no judgments here from to me. Okay, this is Google. We're gonna judge here, if
Yes,
anybody.
no judgments to you for these
But
descriptions.
so first up on the list, we have Mortis. Google's description is one of Sibby's henchmen, described as the neediest and carrying the most junk. And yes, Google said that verbatim.
Um, so, well, continue down your list.
Next up, we have Bane, another of Sibby's henchmen, with a quote unquote weird relationship with food.
Yep, he's the one that doesn't like to put anything in his mouth.
Yeah,
Her
yeah,
words, not mine.
yeah. Contestant number three is Cronus,
Yes.
according to Google, and I quote, a mute henchman of Sibby. Yep. He's the one that was trapped in a closet when he was a child and screamed until he lost his voice and has never spoken a word since. Then we have Jackal, described as quote unquote the hot one.
Okay.
All of this is to say that we have one last person left. And Google gave like actual descriptions for all of these other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
They did Timothy dirty. AI did. Their description of him was one of Sibby's henchmen.
Which is valid, but not helpful.
It's absolutely true, but like, which one? Because
They
there's
could
identifiable markers for each of these
they
characters,
could be hard to
and
keep
Timmy
track
got
of,
nothing.
for sure. So, right out the gate, I don't want to envision any of these men with their clothes off or in any kind of sexual situation
No.
at all. And that was really where it took a turn for me. Like, I hadn't even gotten to the crazy yet, really, in any
Yeah.
of that. So, you had a comment after I finished the descriptions.
So there's, the teeth that don't seem to cut her, the taloned fingernails that don't seem to cut her. I honestly did not pay very much attention to these descriptions. In my head, I just pictured normal guys wearing like fake masks or like just like dudes going to not a haunted house, but a like Halloween party. Not like actually good, well done prosthetic makeup, but just like the cheap stuff you get from Spirit Halloween. That's what I envisioned. I think subconsciously I did not want to picture them the way that they were written, so I just rewrote my own descriptions because I knew going in it was supposed to be a smut book, and I was like, I can't do that. Can't do
So,
that.
I knew it was supposed to be a smut book, and I just want to put on the record that you never get to be mad at me about fantasy holding out on you ever again, because I don't know if you chose this as a revenge book. I don't know if um I don't know. I don't know what I did to you that made you so so angry.
Oh my god.
But this was not a smut book. There is sexual acts that happen in this book, but you can't tell me this was supposed to turn me on. That's what I cannot be convinced of. And I think it was more upsetting to me because H.D. Carlton can do dark and risky and
Yeah.
edgy and all of this, and it still be hot, and it still
Yeah.
be like uh and I will say this. Um there was a point where the book compensated a little bit for the trauma of the first half. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
All right. So, are you ready to dive in and actually talk about each of these scenes?
Yes. Yes, I am.
So, if you would like to hear our in-depth discussions on this part, make sure you're at the actual listening podcast and not the YouTube version, because YouTube will not approve anything said past this point. A lot of people do classify it still as a smut book. I would classify it as I would classify it in that genre of psychologically up dark smut, but I would not put it in the category of your traditional romance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I knew I was going to get crazy. I just was not, you know.
We're here for honest reviews and honest opinions.
Yeah.
So that's what you get. Are you ready for your surprise though?
Maybe.
So HD Carlton has announced, which it's been announced for a while,
Mhm.
but we did get an update. Satan's Affair is in fact getting a rewrite and being turned into a duet. So we're going to get this book rewritten,
Mhm.
and it's going to get expanded and turned into a full-length novel instead of
Okay.
just the 130 pages. And we're going to get a second book, which I can't on this episode say what the second book will likely be about, because you have to finish Haunting Adeline to know where things left off, to know what
Sure.
you're waiting for.
But it's
Um,
more in the same storyline, like the the world of,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um
And more to the point, she has specifically stated that in the rewrite, she will be giving less of the gory deaths and focus more on Sibby, where she came from and who she is. She's not going to change who Sibby is as a person. She's
nor
still
should
going to be
she.
psychotic. There's still going to be crazy deaths, but it's not going to be as graphic. H.D. Carlton has stated that she actually felt that she did a injustice to Sibby when she wrote this one. This is why I
Really?
said that I'm not sure if this book came out before or after Haunting Adeline, because she said that she felt a lot of pressure to chunk this book out there for the content of it, and she rushed through writing it, and she is actually very disappointed in how it was written, that's why she's doing the rewrite, because
Wow.
she feels this was an injustice to Sibby.
So
So
I
you're kind of validated here
I
by the author
feel
herself.
very validated, and I agree with her, and I'm impressed that she is willing to say that and be like, this was not my best work,
Yeah.
and have the balls to be like, let's have a redo, and I'll make it two books. So I, having heard all of that, I'll totally read them.
Yeah.
I
She yeah.
I think you saying that it was rushed makes sense because it almost felt like it needed more editing. And I don't mean
I agree there.
censoring. I don't mean censoring. I just mean true, like, being
Flow
more,
of the book.
yeah, flow of the book, being more precise with what is explicit and what isn't.
Yeah. So she I remember when we were reading Haunting Adeline, which was like what, 2 years ago now?
Yeah, it's been a minute.
I knew then that she was planning to turn Sibby's book into a duet. So she's been working on this for 2 years, and she makes posts every now and then updating everybody on it. There is no finish date, so we don't know when we're going to get that. But she has stated that sometimes it's taking her a while because sometimes she finds herself rushing through this new one, through the rewrite, because she wants to get the book out there to everybody because she knows how much we want that. But then she has to stop herself and take time away from it so that she doesn't do that because she refuses to put a book out there again that will do an injustice to Sibby. So
Yeah, I totally understand
she's
that.
fully
And
respecting the character, and I respect however long it takes to make this book as
yeah,
perfect as she can for Sibby.
and I fully sympathize with the pressure that authors, it's like the more popular you become, the more pressure there is to like pop this stuff out, and that's just not how good writing
Yeah.
works. um
Especially if you're an independent writer,
mhm.
like you make your own deadlines. You don't necessarily have deadlines to meet, but you've got a whole audience that's expecting a deadline.
Yeah,
We live in a world where a lot of authors now are just independent authors. They're not
yeah,
going through book places or
i
publishing
I think I
houses.
have more compassion than the average person. Like when a there's a series, for example, that's not finished, and there's a date for the next book, but then it gets pushed back. It's like
Hmm.
I want it to be good, and I want you to be, I want it to be the best it could be, and I'm willing to wait for that because I understand how the
Yeah,
writing process works. So,
right. Like, don't rush through your book to make it to the audience just for the sake to get it out there. I'd rather you make sure it's up to your standards before you throw something out there that's half cocked.
yeah, agreed.
I'm willing to wait however long I need to because I love Sibby and I will wait forever for her.
Sibby
As long as I get her
deserves
someday.
Sibby deserves for people to wait for her
Yeah.
after everything she's been through. She deserves that.
So, with all of that being said, let's give our ratings.
Okay.
Let's save the overall rating for the end this time.
Okay.
Let's go through our breakdown first and then do an overall rating.
Okay.
So, what did you think? What did you rate content wise?
For me, content, I'm going to say it's like a 3 out of 10. And it's
Oof.
for multiple reasons. It's one being that there was some graphic detail that I don't think was necessary. And
Oh, Gary,
yeah,
you screwed
and
up the book.
but also because there was other content that I wanted more of that wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so I content that's a you know, look, I'm going to judge this book on what it is and what it was, and it sounds like she would probably, agree, and this is
Hmm.
but that's kind of where I'm at with the content.
I rated the content a 6 out of 10. I I think I'm just so I love Sibby as a character so much that I can overlook a lot. But also knowing what I knew from Haunting Adeline, I did not go into this book the same way I would a normal smut dark romance. So I give it a 6 out of 10. There were some things lacking though.
Yeah.
So I already know what you're probably going to rate the spies. I rated it a 6 out of 10 because it did in fact that one scene did in fact make me blush. And I blushed hard even knowing what I knew. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10
Okay.
purely for that. It was also very creative. That I mean, that's a lot of people.
It is a lot of
So
people. Um I'm not going to be giving any credit for that. um
I know.
I I zero like I not one moment of this book did it for me. In terms of spice, I don't even classify this as spice. I'm open to feeling differently in the rewrite. I'm open to feeling differently in the rewrite is what I'll say.
That's
It's gonna
fair.
it's gonna be hard. I'm not gonna lie to you. My expectations. I'm gonna manage my expectations, but I'm not. Yeah, that's all I have to say about
I already knew what your rating on that was going to be. I also know what your next one's going to be. What did you rate on
what did I rate on what? I think you cut out.
romance?
Um, Zero again. Also, there wasn't really romance in this book. Uh, yeah, because
Yeah.
even her relationship with the henchman um, didn't really feel like romance. So yeah,
I rated the romance a 3 out of 10. I give it a 3 and not a 0 because I did see some not traditional romance. We're not getting Zayd Meadows here.
no,
Not at all. But the henchmen, which I think viewing them the way that I did throughout this book helped me. Like we discussed that earlier. I can't discuss it on the YouTube part because it'll spoil things. But they did care about her. And they always put her well being first. They were all about her. And she was willing to sacrifice herself and she refused to leave them behind. There was a lot of loyalty and care between her and the henchman. So I give it a 3 out of 10. But again, we don't have traditional romance here. But Sibby's not a traditional person. So,
That's true. She's not.
what did you rate the writing?
Um,
We're going for just the writing here, not the actual.
I would give the writing a 6 out of 10.
We moved up from zero.
Yes. Um, these I think will average once I give my general score. I think it
Hmm.
does end up averaging out, but yeah. Um, I would say the point of view of this alternate perspective and the way we very clearly saw the world through Sibby's eyes, I think was a 6 out of 10. I think maybe my critique would be editing, the editing side of
Hmm.
writing. So that's kind of why we're at still a 6.
Yeah. I mean, fair. I rated it a 9 out of 10. And I loved her writing. I love H.D. Carlton's writing. I like she does what she sets out to do, which is conflict the reader morally.
Mm-hmm.
It irks you where it's supposed to irk you, and it makes you, which I feel like you may more or less have skimmed the actual smut scenes that happened because you couldn't get into any of that. But somebody who did read it and did end up blushing from it,
Wait, I
it does
did read
conflict
it.
you.
I was listening it to it on audiobook, so there was no skimming. I heard every single word. I just blocked a lot of it out because I didn't want to be there.
Well,
But I was there. Just for the
you
record.
just wish you weren't there.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like it irked you where it was supposed to irk you, and in my book, it elicited the smut response that you should get, but then immediately irks you again, which again she did what she set out to do. She morally conflicted the reader on what is appropriate, what's not, where is your line, and she wrote that really well.
Yeah,
I don't give it a full 10 out of 10 though, because there is a lot of work that could be done to this, which is, I mean, it's why she's making a rewrite of the book,
for sure.
and I'm ready for that. As far as the characters go, what did you rate those?
Characters, I think, are like I would say 8 out of 10. I mean, everything is pretty well developed. Even the henchmen, all five of them, do have, you know, developed character, and, the character in the insane asylum, like, it's just
Mhm.
very well developed character wise.
I agree with that. Gave it a 9 out of 10 for characters. I would have. It was so hard to rate this book just on this book alone and not bring in my feelings from Haunting Adeline into it. If I brought like her character details from Haunting Adeline, it would have been a 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
But just purely on this book, we could have had a lot more backstory on her as the main character. So it doesn't get a full 10 out of 10. Well, I mean, I agree with everything you said. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. What was your overall score?
so overall, I was at about a 4.5. And probably would have been lower if Zayd Meadows was not in this book, but
Oof.
he was there, and I at least had a moment to remember that there are beautiful, sexy things in the world, if only for a glimpse.
Oh my goodness.
um, yeah, that's where I'm at. I like I said, I will give the rewrite its day in court. I won't completely. I'll be honest. If you had said, there's coming, the second book is coming out to this book, and it was just like
Mhm.
another Sibby book, I think I would be like, I'm good.
Fair points, fair points. I gave it an overall rating of an 8 out of 10. I did really enjoy the book, but I am a horror fanatic and I do enjoy gore scary movies. So nothing about this book really bothered me, but I do feel like it was lacking in other areas and there should have been more to it than that as the main character goes. Because there's more to her than just murder and
Yeah,
in my opinion.
yeah. This was rough. This was a rough week for your girl.
We are not on the same page with books.
I know.
Like
I
the
know.
last
I
three
mean,
books we did were like,
we both loved Crescent City. I know you had some frustrations with it, but so did I. Like, I think
yeah,
we had both, but I think, um, yeah, we've been on totally different pages. I will say that I like Lights Out more than I liked this book.
it's a fair point. Fair
So
point.
I can't say that, like, you know,
I enjoyed Lights Out more than this, but I think that I will enjoy the rewrite duet more than Lights Out, if that makes any sense at all.
it does. I could see that. I could
Well,
see that.
that is a wrap for this episode. As always, we hope you enjoyed our take on this steamy, or as Tara would deem it, disturbing book. And we will see y'all next week on A Novel Fair.
Where we will be discussing the first two books of the Vicious Lost Boys series, The Never King and The Dark One. Be sure to like and follow us on social media and hit that subscribe button before you go. We'll see y'all soon.
Bye.